Broker Bulletin acknowledges the traditional custodians of all the lands across the country on which we record our podcast and pays its respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Broker Bulletin podcast, where better begins. Join us as we chat with brokers about what's working for them, what drives them, and the real challenges and wins that matter most right now.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Broker Bulletin. I'm Mel Griffin and we're coming to you live from day 3 of the Growth Summit 2026. Off the back of a huge night at the LMG Awards, so it was a great night. I'm really excited to be talking to Anthony O'Flynn and Luke Harborne from IFA. You guys have been on an amazing growth journey recently. There's lots changing in your business since the very first time I met you, Anthony. Tell us how you got started in broking, what that journey's looked like.
It was probably started from, I was in the banking environment, corporate world, started with State Bank in New South Wales and Colonial took us over and then Commonwealth Bank took us over. When I was with Colonial, one of the things that I got introduced to was 24-hour customer service and mobile lending and started a career as a credit manager there. Lucky enough, I helped set up third-party banking with Commonwealth Bank through a lady named Kathy Cummings. It was at that point where I was very credit orientated and my executive manager said to me, you should get some sales experience. At that point of time, Colonial and Com were merging together and they wanted their financial planners to start writing mortgages. So I was offered a position to go out and be a salesperson, encourage financial planners to write mortgages. What happened is one of the groups that was under my control was IFA Financial Planning. They were about 60 financial planners, varying from ages. There were old school financial planners, and they wanted to develop a mortgage portfolio. So I started working with them, trying to get their individual financial planners to write mortgages. So it was a lot of hands-on training. After about 12 months, they approached me and said, we'd really like to start up a mortgage business ourselves. They offered me some shareholding in it and said, would you come across? And again, being a 33-year-old, I was very nervous about making that switch into being a self-employed person. And my wife at the time, I said, would you do it? And she said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, it's always something I had in my mind, run my own business. And so I took the plunge and jumped across. And so I had me and another lady who was working for me trying to introduce 60-year-old people to write mortgages and it become a referral process. And basically from that day, the business has grown.
So how many people were in that business when you first started versus what you've got now?
So there was just me and another girl working. Very, very hard, long hours. Again, we didn't have the flexibility of technology. Everything was paper-based. We would fax things in. And we did have emails. It's not that far long ago, but it was extremely hard. And as we've grown, one of the things that I was always concerned about is putting people on. A bit of a control freak. Until I met a young fella, or met his father, Luke's dad, and he was a financial planner that I had started training him to write mortgages. Mm-hmm. And our families come very close together. I used to do road trips up to where Luke grew up at Moree, and we used to stay there. And then Luke moved to Sydney as going to school at Joey's at Hunters Hill. Then he went into to become a physio, and his dad rang me one day, I'll never forget, because I used to write his mortgages, and he said, oh, Luke's out of a job. Do you think you got something for him? And I said, what am I going to get Luke to do? Young kid out of university, doesn't know anything. I said, yeah, we'll get him to work 3 days a week. Come in. And I'll never forget the first day he walked in and he goes, real keen, young and bubbly. And he said, what am I going to do? And I thought, what am I going to get him to do? So I threw this file of his old man, and in the old days we had the paper files. And I said, have a look through that, mate, and we'll go from there. And he opened it and he goes, yeah, what do I do? So basically he's done a lot of self-education himself, and we've grown with that. And he's started, like I've started all my young people in our office in a retention role where they get to learn the files, learn what a lending ratio is, learn what pricing is, and then graduate them through the whole process and to now become a superstar like him as a broker.
So Luke, tell us a little bit about your sort of version of that journey. So you've walked into this office physio. Yeah. Did you think you were turning up to give massages to the team, or what was that sort of?
I kind of knew, I didn't even really know what a home loan was, to be honest. I was thrown in the deep end. To answer the question before, you must have been 2 staff. We're now, I think, 11. We've got another starter coming on Monday. And to clear the record, I wasn't out of a job. I was working at a bar on the weekends. But I needed more money. I was living in Sydney and I was a young fella and I liked to go out and have fun. So I wanted more income. And Anthony was very generous and gave me a couple of days a week during the week. And I didn't have a full uni schedule. So I remember just coming in and plonked, I think it was about 6 or 7 files and they're all about this thick on the desk. And I was just opening it up and I'm seeing some IDs and some pay slips and some things called a tax return and financial statements. Had no idea what I was looking at really. But as I got into the business and started understanding the model and how it worked, it kind of really clicked with me, the mortgage broking model and how it works and how it could be really successful. I think Anthony was doing a lot of things right, but like he touched on before, he was a bit of a control freak. It's been a gradual process over the years as we built a strong partnership together, allowing him to gradually step back and just release more and more things out of his control, which at the start was hard to do. But the more we grew and the more people we brought on to free him up to do more high value tasks. And that's been a big theme that we've been speaking about here, freeing yourself up to do more high value tasks, speaking to the clients, actually selling the deals, doing the strategy and figuring out how you're going to place a deal, as opposed to doing all the grunt work, which was all very manual. And back when I started, like Anthony said, we were submitting, I remember doing a bit of Combank because he's ex-colonial. So I remember it was the old Combank COLA system was how you would put a deal through, not apply online. So it's crazy how quick the time's gone. But here we are now. We got my CRM and we're flying.
And I want to definitely circle back and talk about the team and the evolution of the business. But one of the things that I find really fascinating every time I talk to you is the dynamic between the two of you and how that's really evolved. You started off working in the business, being mentored and taught how to be a broker. Now you are part owner of the business. There's been a huge change in that. So, Anthony, that would have, for a control freak, been a really big challenge, I'm imagining, for you. What was the thought process that came into bringing someone into partnership with you versus having them just work in the business? I
think I've seen a lot of financial planners and the way their businesses were operating, and it was always preached about succession planning was something you should do, and no one in that industry ever does it. And I was always conscious of the model that I liked with the banking is being a traditional banker. I started at the bank being a clerk, used to count checkbooks and all that kind of stuff, is at the grassroots down. And I think you tend to get a better understanding of what you're doing. And that's what I wanted to do with all our staff is, and people say, why don't you do overseas processing? But to me, we're giving these young people a career in broking, which is such a fantastic industry to be in, and showing them the steps, but not pushing them straight into be a broker, but learn their skill set slowly. And that's one of the things that I push on with Luke, and Luke started picking it up. But just in regard to release, it made me, when I started to think about it, and I look back now and go, I missed a lot of things with my kids growing up because I was working and the technology wasn't there, is that you have to let go of things. And that's one of the things that Luke's really taught me is let go. I'm happy to take this over for you. And again, it's just also having someone young, it keeps you very active. And I look around, a lot of the brokers here, some of them, in the 60s like myself, but
Not yet.
Here to go. But the big difference that I see is when you work with young people, you get the energy. And that's what I love. I love coming to work now with the energy of the office and all our staff. I'm the oldest at 59, and then Luke's the next one. You know what I mean? Down at 33.
So he's an old boy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm an old boy.
and the rest of them 21, 19, and you come in every day, it's fun. And it's a joke. And, they've all got sense of humours and the girls, one of the things I never employed ladies. And it was just one of those things that, but now we've got more ladies in our office than we do men. And I found they're just fantastic. They're really, really good, organised. And that's probably the big thing that Luke's taught me to do is we've got to be more organised. You've got to let go of things. And he's always said, we've got to get a lady on board to help us. We did one, and then it's just grown from there. And then it's the best thing we've ever done.
So it's about the right person, regardless of gender. Yeah,
that's what I think. It's always been a male dominant thing, but I can see now evolving. And I think, female brokers are even better than blokes. They've got more empathy for people and more caring, where blokes, sometimes it's just to deal on the table. But what I say to the young kids is when they're learning, I said, you got to love a deal, you got to wear a deal, you got to feel a deal. And I said, that's what you become a good broker.
And AI is never going to take away that component,
that's exactly right.
That human touch.
No, and I think one of the things that we have developed, and Luke's even better at it than me, is that relationship with clients. And I think that is something that's critical in this industry. You can do the tech savvy stuff, and it's what I'm always teaching our young staff is that pick the phone up, make the call. You know, they're all quick to do the texting and emails, but make them have a conversation. And that's how you build rapport with people. And even young Paul now, the broker, we said to him, go out and see clients in face-to-face, build it where, you know, they're used to picking up a phone or texting or whatever. Take the time and sitting down with people and put yourself in their environment. They feel a lot more comfortable and you get a lot more respect from them.
Definitely being able to adapt to each client and understand what they need. Now, one of the other things that you've done when you've talked about expanding your team and the changes to set you up, I guess, for that transition is what does the operations of the business look like? And I know that's where you've both spent a lot of time. You've brought in an amazing resource into your team to really help build that out. But tell us a little bit about that ops manager sort of mentality that you've brought into the business. How did that get started and where's that now? Because it's made a huge difference.
I'm going to jump in on this one.
Yep.
Kel, we'll plug Kel, won his operations manager of the year last night, and it was a fantastic achievement, very well deserved. He'd been in the business for a couple of years and then he was finishing his studies. In his last year of studies, you have to do a year away. So I went to Germany for a year and he came back. We're trying to figure out, can we find a spot for him in the business? Because he's a great asset and he's young and he's keen. And I remember he came back and we're trying to find a spot for him. And Anthony was like, I don't think we can afford him what he wants, because he'd been looking online and Shore Financial, I don't think they're LMG group, but they're a big group. And he goes, this is what they've offered me. And Anthony and I sat down and we said, we can't do this. This is probably one of our bigger arguments we've had. I really wanted to keep Kel. And it's like, I just don't think we can find him in the budget. And that moment of conflict between us has been one of our greatest learnings, I think. And we've taken that learning for future hires as well, because if we didn't put an attractive enough offer forward to keep Kel at that point in time, we lost Kel. I think the last 2 years of growth it could have even been backwards. He's just taken so much off us. And so we put him in that operations manager role. And I didn't know if we were big enough or needed someone in that role. But once you put someone in the role, you find that they will find plenty of areas of the business that need improving.
Well, he's got to earn his money, right?
Yeah.
And you do hear about it. Every conference you go to, someone will always speak about improving the little things, the gradual things, that finding the 1%ers. And if you improve all these different areas of your business by 1%, then, that's going to add up over time. Putting on someone like that and investing in that resources, it's paid us back in, tenfold, I would say. The overall or the bigger learning on it was, I think you've got to take a plunge, or you've got to take a bit of a leap of faith on people. If the person's right, make it work.
Yeah.
Get them in the business. If you think they're a good fit for your culture, and if you believe in what they have to offer, then they're just going to get in there. And I always say to Anthony when we're looking at a new hire, it's like I can't remember the last day in our business anyway. We've been lucky where someone's come in and they've had nothing to do. It's funny, we come away on this conference and, they obviously love it because they're sitting there on Teams at 6:00 at night, and obviously we don't expect that, and they're in there at 8, and, that's more than a full day of work, but we can't get them out of the office. There's a young fella, Pat, who comes in from Penrith every day, and we can't push him out the door. So,
and what a testament to the culture that you've created. And I think that diversity in the way that you think, the willingness to grow and to continue to evolve your business is obviously aligning to that. And I know we had a conversation recently about some of the changes that you want to make into your business to really help build that evolution and the diversity. So what's next on the horizon for you?
We'd like to really push the asset lending side. Me personally, it's more getting my head around when the transition out of the business is, and working with Luke back, because personally, I can't even see myself getting out, but I know it comes to a point that I've got to do it. And, the good thing is I've got a legacy, and, the thing that I love is keeping the IFA name, whether we rebrand it, Luke does down the track into something new, but it's just keeping that something that I developed from nothing into what it is, 26 years, and hopefully it's around for another 26 years. And that's probably the next step that I've got to work out, and talking with Luke. And then that's the other thing that I was going to say with Luke and the operations managers, developing him to take some of my jobs off of running the business.
Yeah.
And, you hear that constant saying at these conferences that, you work in the business, not on the business too much. And I think that's one thing we really realised that Kel's done. He's, working on the business, and we give him tasks where we sit down and say, okay, my CRM, we've never used it properly. There's no manual that, how each business should do it. You do it your own way. And that's what Kel's really taken the passion on, to pull it apart and be able to do it. And that's what we're gradually trying to develop into, to be like a general manager of the business to be able to look at everything from budgeting, from wages to, running reports and setting up tasks and all that.
Yeah.
And that's where I see us developing further into asset finance, really pushing. We've got young Paul coming through that loves business transactions, doing a bit of business lending, etc. So diversification is a key. We're also trying to get a relationship with financial planners to try and pass that on, because we don't do that well at all. Mm-hmm. That's probably something that we're trying to get better at. And, Luke's made a couple of good connections and we're starting to work with them as well, because if we can have that diversification, I think it's the most important thing with any business.
And diversification is always a really interesting topic. So I think when we talk about diversification, the biggest mistake is people think they've got to do it all themselves. And you've just spoken about, well, we're going to have one person to do this. Yeah. We're going to have one person to do that. And therefore they become specialists and you can excel at everything versus trying to throw all the balls up in the air. So
you just can't do it. And that's one thing that I think I've learned as well, is you can't do everything. And it's taken me 26 years to probably get where I am, and I can put my hand on my heart and go, Luke's probably been the big one that's changed me that way. But he said we've got to get people in, and I think using skill set of other people and their expertise is probably what's going to be the best for our business as well.
And one of the things that I've really noticed since we've reconnected recently and talked about where you're at with your business is freeing up that time's enabled you to do some things to give back.
Yep.
And that you're really passionate about. Yep. So tell us a little bit about the work you're doing in the NT.
Yeah, it's every second deal these days is an NT one. It's an area that place that I really love, and I got in there through a client of ours whose daughter moved up there to start a business, and she sold a place. I helped her sell a place at Tamworth, did a discharge of a mortgage, and she brought a place up there, and the real estate agent said to her, "Who's your broker? Do we mind?" And she mentioned me, and from then I formed a relationship with them. When you go to a place like Catherine, I'm very passionate about it because it always has a bad stigma to it, that the people up there, you've got, they talk about the drunkenness and all the violence, etc. But once you just get out of that little bit of culture and talk to the real people on the ground, it's amazing. They're down-to-earth people. They're all up there. They're not battlers, but they try hard and they're always trying to, get ahead. And the diversity of people up there is amazing as well. I just did a loan for a lady who was 45, and she said she's the first one in her mob to get a home loan, and the property was worth $250,000. Like, you'd look at it and, go, oh, how do you live in that? But she's so proud of it, and we got her into it. And she said, I'm my first one of my aunties and uncles that have got a property,
That's amazing.
And from there, I've just picked up another one of a mother that's trying to get a son in. The son's 45, never had, and he's got debts, and we've done some restructuring for it. So it's a building, but it's just giving them goals. And the people up there just don't have that. It's just really, really sad to see that. Regional areas is probably the areas that I love being in.
And those deals, they're small deals, so they're not bringing a massive amount of income to the business, but what a sense of accomplishment you must feel knowing that you're making a life-changing difference to someone.
And all your rewards, as my late dad said, aren't financial. It's the putting people in properties. That's what I love about our job, helping people about it. And that's the same with the people up there, just getting them into properties and that they could never do. They don't believe they can. And that's what our job is, to help them get into it.
Making dreams come true.
It is. That's what it is. And it's a simple thing for us, but for them, it's such a big thing. And, most of them said, I can never get a house like this. Nicole Cray, lady, that she said, I never thought I'd own a house. And she rang me the other day and said, I got a job promotion. Nothing had to do with a home loan, but I built that relationship that she now rings me and says, hey, my job just got promoted. And I go, fantastic. And my commitment to her was I'd check in every 3 months.
Yeah.
And see how she's going, because, she's just so proud, and, it's just so good feeling to talk to her.
And your face just lights up when you talk about it too.
It does. And it just, the people up there just are hard workers. And unfortunately, some of them are on 1 million acres. One of the other clients we just helped, Reed McConnell, he never been in air conditioning. His kids, 3 kids live in a caravan.
Oh, Revy.
And we just got him into a property that he goes, how good's air conditioning? And I go, what? And we take it for granted.
Yep.
And just that guy there, he's just a hard worker. He works on 1 million acre properties doing fencing. It was 55 degrees the other day. He was out there.
Takes his kids out.
Takes his kids. The kids do out of the school and live in a caravan where he works.
Wow.
That's what his wife did. They had said, I'm going to get a property. And so it took us 2 years to get him into it. And he said, I'm going to get into it, so I'm going to get you into it. And now he's into it.
And he got it.
Yeah, and he just rings me up and goes, how good's air conditioning? Such a simple thing.
To paint your picture, structure. Like we're in a big, you've been to our office where there's 11 of us all crammed into a room together. And then we'll go missing for an hour. And we're like, where's he gone? And then roll back in the room. It's like another Northern Territory deal, isn't it? He goes, I was just chewing the fat with some bloke from Catherine.
So it keeps it real.
Oh,
It does.
very real. It does.
Yeah.
It does. To me, they're just down-to-earth people, and they're so appreciative of your work and your service. Like you said, they're not big income earners, but it's just helping people, and that's what our job is. I just get so passionate about it that if I retire, I go, what am I going to do? Because I've got to find something else to do that I can put back to the community, and that's what I love. And that's brokering's been fantastic for that.
Fantastic. So you've got all of these goals, dreams, visions for what your business is going to look like. You may not necessarily know the full picture of what that looks like, but you've got an idea. Coming to an event like this, the Growth Summit, spending a couple of days where you're taking time away and working on your business. What are some of the key things that you've taken on board throughout the last few days?
The AI, I never knew what it was till I knew of it. Don't get me wrong. And I look on Google and goes, AI does this. It's funny. We sat there yesterday and they were talking about when I had the brokers up there and the different people. And one of the ladies said, you should do it a couple of hours a day. And Luke and I were laughing about it. But we got home after yesterday and then we're sitting around before we went out to the awards night. And I said to Luke, what can AI? And, it just got me thinking in my own mind about it. And that's one thing I love about these conferences is they're always so busy working in the business and on the business, etc. But this just takes you away and gives you time to reflect about where the business should be going and what the things that LMG have given us, which is amazing, that we never had when we were with Fast, and the development and the technology that LMG's put into our businesses is just second to none. And I just can't, and I can't get my head around it because I'm a bit older and the tech side's not there. But people like Kel are just like the system just about dances now, thanks to what LMG are doing and making our jobs so much more easier and the processes that we've got. And that's what it just lets me sit here and take it all in. And whilst Kel goes to the other offsite meetings during the year with you guys, I come to one event and it just goes, wow. You know what I mean? And that's why I think it's very grounding to be able to sit here with all the people, beautiful people here. Like every broker here is fantastic and all the staff at LMG are fantastic. And you just talk to people and what they're doing. And it's just like amazing. And wow, it's such a dynamic, diverse industry to be in, and just LMG are helping us make it so much better all the time.
Yeah. And then so Luke, what about yourself? You're coming at it from a slightly different perspective, obviously a different generation. No offense, we're in the same era, Anthony. So coming at that from a different perspective, AI is probably not as daunting for you, but what are some of the takeaways that you've had?
Well, I was trained by this guy, so for me, AI was quite daunting actually, and I'm kind of, I have put my hand up, I've buried my head in the sand on it, but the last couple of conferences, it was this and it was the other, was at the top 100 conference as well, and it's been really eye-opening to see people speak on it and see other people in their businesses speak on it and see how much time and effort and energy they're putting towards learning it and embracing it. So I've definitely shifted from, I think they put up there, you a doomer or a gloomer or whatever. I've definitely shifted probably from doomer gloomer land to whatever the bloomer. Other end of that bloomer, other end of the spectrum. And I think we've got to really embrace it and tap into it and use it to strengthen the business and use it for its potential where it's going to be helpful. We love the culture we've built in the office and I never want to lose that. And I always want that human touch. And Whitney spoke about human in the loop, which I think is going to always be super important in our business. It's just such a trust and relationship game that we play. But just even looking at the staff in there, and if we can save we call them lending associates time, packaging up deals, if AI can take that annoying part of the process, that really boring, going to relabel all these files. And if we can use AI to free up their time and again, do more high value tasks by using it, then we definitely will. Anthony touched on it before, diversification. And, I look at our next hire. I think we've brought more people on and we feel like we're adequately staffed, but then you want to go, okay, what's the next step? And you kind of get this weird, I guess it's more the gut that tells you what the next hire is. If someone asks me, what's your next hire look like? And to me, I think we're probably at the point now where we could almost invest or put resource towards maybe like an internal kind of BDM-y role where they're going out and they're driving relationships, because we're so busy with our organic growth and we kind of respect that. I guess I think that might be a point of difference where some brokers will get leads and then they'll just refer it straight on after that call. But we kind of like to respect if we're having family or friends or, people referring us, we like to honor that and do the service for those clients. So I think someone coming in and not outsourcing, but giving someone else a baby to say, go and find some businesses that we can be aligned with and bring us into heaps of business, because Kel's now got us to the point where the process is so seamless and smooth that we can really take on that volume. I think we've laid a really good platform now, and I'm really excited for the next few years to just see how far we can kind of take it and grow. It's super exciting.
And that's the real feel that I'm getting every time I talk to you, and today included. There's a real energy. There's a natural curiosity. What can we do differently? How can we continue to evolve and to grow? And, you've got a real reason to do that. You're looking at, well, what are the next steps for me from a succession perspective? You're looking at that from, well, this is now potentially my baby, and how do I continue to grow that and build on the legacy that's
I think
there?
It was, Michael McQueen touched on it yesterday, and he spoke well on it. It was having a fresh set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it instantly. Our most recent hire, Angie, and she's from Penrith too, and she's young and she's very smart. There's a theme going on. There's people from Western Sydney. They like to riff in.
Nothing wrong with Western Sydney.
But the first thing, it was one of the first things she came and sat down, and we were talking about our Google reviews, because really like pushing our clients, well, not pushing them, but we like to shamelessly ask to write a Google review as part of our post-settlement process. So we'll get their info and, could you please do this if you liked our service? And she goes, where are we placed on AI search? And it's like instantly, like that's not even on our radar. And funnily enough, they spoke on it yesterday, how Google and SEO optimization is just going to fall off a cliff, and then AI search optimization, I forget exactly what they called the terminology on it, but just fresh set of eyes. She'd only been there for 2 weeks and she's already thinking, how do we get our AI search engine optimization up? And we haven't even thought about it. So that's just reinforcing the idea of just keep bringing more and more people on, fresh set of eyes, and just keep the business exciting and fresh.
And evolving.
Evolving.
Yeah. Look, I could talk to both of you for hours to understand more about what you're looking to do, the challenges that you're facing into. I really do love the journey that you're on, but obviously we are a little bit limited for time. But I encourage both of you to remain holding each other accountable. It sounds like that's the thing that works best for you, is to challenge each other and go, right, is this a smart decision? Or, hey, maybe we need to do something a little bit differently.
It's something that I always, wrote the most loans, and between the two, a little bit of competition now. He's outstripping me so much, and I get so frustrated. I've got to, the challenge is there with Luke, and he said, don't worry about it. You're at your age. And I go, no, but it's no anger between it. It's more just, I can see him coming on, and, me being a competitive person also enjoy that challenge. And that's what we're trying to build in the office as well with the younger staff is, have a passion, develop it, and set yourself goals. And that's what we try to do every year to them. And I think that's the most important thing.
And thanks for sharing, because if we didn't have the opportunity to talk to people like yourselves, those brokers that are out there doing it on their own, they don't necessarily have someone to bounce ideas off. So hearing other people's stories is an amazing way for them to tap into that, to hold themselves accountable and leverage other people's experience without necessarily having someone sit in the office with them. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. If you have a topic that you want us to discuss, please email us at brokerbulletin@lmg.broker or DM us on Instagram at lmg.broker, and our producer will make sure that we answer that ASAP. If you like this episode, make sure you rate and follow us in your favourite pod store. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mel.
Thanks, Mel.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Broker Bulletin. We would hate for you to miss an episode. Subscribe to Broker Bulletin in your favourite podcast app. Has this episode been helpful? We'd love you to rate and review us. It'll help us deliver content that's useful to you and help others discover us. If you have great ideas for topics worth tackling or have burning questions you'd like addressed on an upcoming episode, reach out. Links in the show notes. See you next time.